Hello there. My name is Maureen with my co-host Corey. We are The Real Guys, and this is The Real Show with 2 E's. Today we're heading out into the galaxy and into the known universe to review a film which I don't think many people will expect.
No.
But as always, I'm calling my co-host Corey. How are you doing today, Corey?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. It's nice to hear you and it's nice to see you on our video version. Yes, how many times am I going to plug the video version? I'm sure people who listen to this by only audio are sick of me talking about this by now.
Yes.
But we have our video version that is on our YouTube channel, The Real Show, The Real 2E's L Show. And you can be able to watch us on our video version as well as listen to us on Amazon, Apple Podcasts, anywhere, iTunes, anywhere you get your podcasts, we'll be there. And also with our new rebranded look, we're coming at it fresh. We've been working on it for a while, a bit of a secret project, and we're taking the nation by storm.
Correct.
We're hitting out with a strong, swift strike, and our new look. It's wonderful. It's stark. It's got the great colours. We've got a new poster out as well. So we hope you all enjoy our new look, new revived look for The Real Show. But as always, I'm with my co-host Corey. How are you doing today, Corey?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. Could you perhaps explain to the listeners what we will be talking about today?
Yeah, so we're going to go a bit back in time. 1984?
Well, yeah. Well, in slew of something that's happened recently,
Yes.
in slew of 2021,
Exactly.
and in slew of
Go on.
the great Oscar-winning film
There you go.
that is Denis. I'm going to try not to butcher his name. I'm sorry. Denis Villeneuve.
There you go.
His 2021 Dune, the adaptation of Frank Herbert's 1965 novel.
Yes.
And we're going back all the way back to 1984,
Exactly.
as Corey said.
Yep.
With whose Dune?
David Lynch's
David
Dune.
Lynch's Dune from 1984. Yes, we both watched it,
We have.
and now we're going to give you our thoughts and our review and our real rating. So, when you sat down to watch this film,
Yep.
Corey, was there anything you were expecting?
So I've seen David Lynch's films before,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm very aware of his style of filmmaking per se.
Yes.
And the fact that he can be a bit strange and a bit weird. Other than that, I knew it was sci-fi. I knew it was set on a planet, very sandy planet. I knew the somewhat basic premise of Dune. I was expecting a weird
Somewhat
sci-fi.
basic premise of Dune.
No, as in I had a
Oh.
basic understanding.
Right,
of
okay,
it.
okay.
I'm not
The
saying
premise
Dune.
is not somewhat
No, it's
basic.
not.
No, we could spend an entire episode talking about the premise of Dune,
No.
which we'll try to shorten as best as we can.
Yes.
But yeah, we're doing this because basically part 2 of Dune's just started filming a few weeks ago, with new characters. You know, Florence Pugh has joined the cast. You like her. Christopher Walken himself
Yeah.
has joined the cast of Dune Part 2. All your favourites are back. Timothée Chalamet, Dave the Animal Bautista.
Correct.
You know, all of your favourites are coming back to Dune.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll be, and we might review Dune Part 2 when it comes out. Which is
Possibly.
only because I know the 2021 film is only the first half of the first book,
Yeah.
and this is the entire first
It's the
book.
entire first book.
Yes, and we know there's 6 books in the Dune series. Well, there's
Yes.
6 books that are written by Frank Herbert.
Yes.
There's probably about, I don't know, 20 or 25 actual books that sort of expand on the universe through spin-offs and prequels and all that kind of thing. But the actual Dune series is 6 books written by Frank Herbert. So there we go. And let's go into the film itself.
Yes.
Now, it throws a lot of terminology at you early. We get Princess Irulan, who is the daughter of the Emperor of the known universe. And she explains that it's 10,000 years in the future. This is the first lie that Dune tells you,
Right.
Corey, because Dune lies to you.
Okay.
It's not 10,000 years in the future. It's actually 20,000 years in the future.
Oh.
It's 10,000 years AG, which is after the establishment of the Spacing Guild. So it's actually 10,000 years AG, so after Guild. So it took them 10,000 years to actually leave. And then 10,000 years have now passed, and now it's 20,000 years in the future, so there you go.
Great.
And what does Princess Irulan explain?
So, from what I can remember, she essentially turns up and she's giving you a nice little...
She turns up, she looks at you on the screen, and she
Yeah,
speaks to
well,
you about...
there's space.
There's
and then
space.
There's like a crossfade and she appears.
Crossfade, yes, indeed.
She appears.
Yes.
In typical... Because one thing I know about Dune, as in the book Dune, is that Dune is very much narration heavy
Yes.
in the book. And there's a lot and you see it in this film, there's a lot of like inner thought Like people think things.
In a monologue.
Yeah.
There's a lot. You know what? People think things is a great subtitle for Dune. Dune. People think things. They do indeed.
Pretty much.
There's a lot of internal monologue. A lot of plans within plans is a good
Yeah.
phrase that Dune often uses.
But no, she.
People. Sorry to interrupt you. It's people, with plots, and there's plots in their plots, and they're all thinking about them all the time, and how people can interact with each other. And the basic word, it's about speech, it's about thought, it's about those sort of realms of communication as well as sort of the metaphysical realms as well. But continue.
Yeah, so she turns up, and she's essentially kind of explaining a brief, like a synopsis of why we're here.
Yes.
And then she's like, "Oh,
she's giving you the cheat sheet."
Yeah, and she's like, "Blah blah blah blah, spice, blah 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 blah, Arrakis,"
which was actually explained to several American movie theaters. Actually handed out in 1984. Actually gave out cheat sheets to you, explaining much of the film's setting.
That's how you know you've done a good
some
job.
Some of the obscure vocabulary when they have to give you a dictionary and say, "Look, before you go in and watch this film, this is what all these words mean." So
that's how
she explains that spice, which is also called the spice melange, but more commonly referred to as spice, is the most valuable substance in the universe. And there's only one place you can get spice, and that's on the planet Arrakis.
Correct.
And for the last 1,000 years, the planet Arrakis has been governed by House Harkonnen, and more specifically by the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen and his nephew, known as the Beast Raban.
Yeah.
Right. However, on the planet Caladan, we have House Atreides, who is ruled by Duke Leto Atreides, his wife Jessica, who is a Bene Gesserit, which is a sort of witch sect of sort of powerful mental psychic witches, and their son Paul Atreides.
Yes.
Right. And now we're going to take a bit of a stop because we're going to go to the planet Kaiten. We go everywhere in this film. This film is jumping from planet to planet, person to person. The cast is massive. Anyway, now we go to the planet Kaiten, and the Emperor, you know what the Emperor's name is?
Emperor.
No, he's not. It's called Shaddam Carino IV.
Okay.
So anyway, Emperor Shaddam IV is the Emperor of the known universe. Well, he looks cool. I like that guy's outfit in the film. He's got the sort of military jacket, but with epaulets, got that cool cape. He does that cool thing where he like swishes the cape.
You see,
off. Do you see the cape swish?
Yeah, it would be cool if he doesn't appear. Because he does the whole thing where he tells the daughter to leave, so you must go, and then he flicks his cape off, but then it just immediately cuts to another scene, and then eventually comes back to him. Yeah, his cape is back on, I think. I was waiting for the camera to pan, and there's someone else, and they're about to have a fight, but no, just cuts away.
Okay, but the Emperor thinks that House Atreides is becoming more popular in the Landsrad.
Yes.
The Landsrad is like Parliament. That's how I explain to someone who's probably never seen Dune.
Yeah.
The universe, the known universe, is run by three groups. The Emperor, and that's the Imperium. He runs the the Empire.
Yeah.
He runs the Galactic Imperium, which is the alliance of planets. Then we have the Landsrad, which is like Parliament, where all the great houses get together in a commune and speak on issues of the known universe. Then we have the Spacing Guild, and they control transport.
Yeah.
The Spacing Guild control basically what gets where and whatever. And all the houses have shares in something called the Chome Company, if they mention that. And that is it's an acronym for something. But the Chome Company basically control trade, and they control who owns what planet and where each of the allegiances kind of go to whatever planet is owned by whoever, right? And the slightest sort of stock change can influence entire planets going to other houses or whatever. But the Emperor fears that House Atreides are growing more popular in the Landsrad, so he gives Arrakis, which is one of the most, very. It's got the spice on it.
Yeah.
Arrakis has the spice on it, so everybody wants that. So the Emperor gives the Atreides Arrakis in hopes that, A, governing it will be very hard, and B, he wants House Harkonnen to gather their troops so House Harkonnen can launch a surprise attack on House Atreides and wipe them out.
Correct.
By using the Emperor's elite troops who are called the Sardaukar. So, and however, at the start of Dune, we get to see the Emperor, and we get to see Kaiten and the Imperial Palace and all that. And then we see the Guild Navigator who turns up because the Spacing Guild wish to know what this great plan the Emperor has cooked up. So they send in the Guild Navigator, who, by the way, looks so weird, but he looks so fantastic. I cannot deal with this guy, right? He turns up in like a big minibus kind of
I
tank
literally
thing.
have it written down.
And what do you have written down?
I have written down in my notes. Where is it?
It's at the start of the film, I think.
It is.
I think
No,
it's the
it's
first scene.
weird bus thing
Weird bus thing.
and translating microphone
Yeah, weird bus thing.
because the guy talks and it auto translates what he's
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. The Spacing Guild people. So the navigator turns up and he's like, "What's going on with the Arrakis? It's a Atreides kind of thing, you know." He looks like a big kind of like a big whale kind of.
It's a weird, yeah. I don't know how you describe it.
In the books, they're sort of described as very fishy,
Yeah.
and very kind of fish mutant-like. Even though I don't think they paid attention to that. I think he just thought, Then it's described that it's described that no one has ever seen a navigator, unless you're a very high-ranking member of the Spacing Guild, which apparently not a lot of people are. And B, it said they don't look human, so maybe just went off that. Even though it's described in later books, they sort of look like sort of fish people, sort of mutants.
Yeah.
But yeah, he looks like kind of like a worm with a very big head,
Yes.
like a big whale
Yes.
kind of thing. And you know what his name is? You know what the Guild Navigator's name is?
Fish boy.
No, Edric.
Oh, okay.
So, very basic name for his character.
There's a little bit in it.
Yeah, Edric.
Yeah.
Edric. Yeah, that's what his name is, and he's actually the Guild Navigator from the second book, Dune Messiah.
Oh, okay.
So he appears in this one as well, because there's not actually a navigator that's actually seen in the first book. So you don't see one in the 2021 version either.
I see. That's
Accurate, yeah.
going off source material.
Exactly. You just see Guild envoys, but that's it.
Yeah.
So Edric says, I'm going to call him that.
Okay.
Edric says, "What's going on, Emperor?" And Emperor's like, "Well, there's House Atreides and there's Arrakis, and I've ordered the Harkonnens to leave. They're going to tell them to come back.
Yes.
So then they're going to attack them. They're going to get rid of House Atreides for me, basically."
Yeah.
And Edric says, "Right, that's sound."
Yes.
So
he goes, right by sound. By the way, it was this kid called Paul.
Paul, yeah, we'll get rid of him for
I
us.
don't like Paul.
Don't like Paul Atreides because they can see the future.
Yeah.
Because Guild Navigators have the power of something called prescience.
Yes.
Which means basically if you take a lot of spice, you can, when anyone does it, if you take a lot of spice, it prolongs your life. It's like a medicinal. It's also a drug. It's a narcotic.
Yeah.
And apparently it tastes different and smells different every time you try it. Apparently initially to Jessica, which is the Paul's mother, it smelled like cinnamon the first time she tried it.
Yes.
But apparently it changes every time. So,
Can I point out?
go on.
I felt like this must have been, maybe the first 10, 15 minutes? How far?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
This is over a 2-hour film.
It is. So at this point, right, maybe 15 minutes in, I get to my notes. I literally write down, I can tell this film will be a fever dream. And
You're on spice as we're doing this.
it took me 15 minutes to then go, I can tell this film is just going to be a complete mess.
It will be. I think it is a complete mess, and that's the best way to describe it.
It's like one of those things where you sit down and you go, what is that?
What is that? What is
then,
going on?
But then 5 minutes later, it one-ups itself constantly.
With something else.
Yeah.
With something else that's even weirder and even stranger than that.
Yeah.
So we go from House Carino on Kite Inn to Caladan
Yes.
to meet the Atreides, and then Patrick Stewart is in this film.
Yes.
There's no other way to say it. He's Gurney Halleck. He was hired by mistake, which is the best thing. Do you know this?
No, I do not.
Right, okay. A bit of trivia for you. His casting as Gurney Halleck, the sort of master of arms at the Atreides castle on Caladan.
Yes.
He wasn't actually supposed to have this role.
Oh.
In a rush to replace another actor, actor David Lynch thought he'd hired someone else who was called Patrick Stewart, and didn't realise he'd hired the actual Sir Patrick Stewart. So there you are, and we've got him in this film. And I did not picture... Gurney Halleck is supposed to be a very sort of hunched over kind of hunchback kind of character who's a bit, very worn from wars and stuff like that. But Patrick Stewart just looks like, a Dickensian gentleman in his military jacket and his big guitar thing he's carrying.
Yeah, the thing he carries once.
His musician,
to reference the fact that he does play music in the books.
Yeah, he just plays music in the books. Yeah,
And
his character's a musician in the books.
So. David Lynch is going, we know he's a musician. I'm not going to reference it.
Yeah, carry this once.
He's got one.
And then he comes into Paul's room with the Mentat Thufir Hawat is his name. There's a lot of names in Dune, so get ready. Thufir says, we're heading to Arrakis. The Emperor's given us it, and we're going to move over in a few weeks. And then Duncan Idaho, who is played by Jason Momoa in the 2021 version, not in this one, obviously. Duncan Idaho takes the scouting party to go and meet the Fremen on Arrakis already.
Yes.
The Fremen are the indigenous people of Arrakis. So they head over there, and Paul has to stay behind. But Paul is tested
Yes.
by the Reverend Mother of the Bene Gesserit,
Correct.
who is called Gaius Mahayam.
Yes.
Um,
Can I point out you've missed one of the
what have I missed?
So we spoke about before on air about the effects.
Right.
You've missed one of probably the worst effects in
Which
this
is
film,
what?
which is the weird rectangle shield that they have.
Oh no! Not the shields! Not the shields! Right. Gurney Halleck says, "All right, Paul, you think you're a good fighter? Let's test it out." So they not only do they make him fight this weird sort of pole with sticks on it that moves and and he has to use this sort of gauntlet blaster to fire it because the Emperor says, "Oh, the Atreides are using some sort of secret weapon using sound, which, as far as I know, doesn't exist in the books."
Yeah, probably not.
But they use this sort of gun which fires sound as a weapon, and he has to go ha to fire the gun, right?
Which must have been great if you're an actor.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
There's no effect. You're just going ha, and there's nothing's happening, right? So anyway, he has to fight this weird pole. It's kind of those things that like martial artists use, but it's got blades on it, whatever. Anyway, and then Gurney Halleck is like, "All right, get your sword out." So anyway, they get out their blades and they have to fight with shields. Now shields exist a lot in the books, and they're meant to be kind of a technology that protects yourself from sort of projectile weaponry and things like that. But because only a slow blade will go through the shield, if it's a high velocity attack, it will be blocked. So again, the shields do not come up throughout the rest of the film. This is the only scene they're featured.
They appear once more.
Right.
And I've written down because it's the stupidest scene in the whole film.
Right. Compared to this stupid scene where we see Patrick Stewart as a Roblox man fighting Paul Atreides, who is also a Roblox man.
Yes.
In their sort of 8-bit shields. Their clunky noises they make.
It appears once more.
And their weird noises, they're bashing and crashing against each other, and it's just dong, 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 and they're kind of... It's so weird. They do it so much better in the 2021 version, where it's kind of just like a blue...
So.
It's kind of just like a blue force field around you, and when it's slow, the blue turns to red, and that's a really smart way to do it. But this is like... They're kind of in these sort of orange... It's like they're the mosquito from Jurassic Park, and they're covered in the orange goo. It's like they're in an orange box, and they're fighting another man in an orange box. So that's the shield. I can't believe I missed the shield scene.
Yeah. It's fine, I got you.
But those are the shields.
I got you.
And then Gaius Mahayam says, "Put your hand in this box, Paul."
Yes.
And he puts it in, and it hurts. He goes, but if he moves, he's going to use the Gom Jabbar. I think it's called the Gom Jabbar, which is the killing needle, and it's going to stab you. So you've got to watch out. So he has to resist the fear. He says, "Fear is the mind killer." That's what he says. So they go, right, okay, off to Arrakis. So he gets in his ship in the frigates, and they fly up to the Guild Hayliner. That's what it's called, and it's this massive transport ship that folds space. Because Guild navigators use the ability to fold space, which is like to teleport you, I guess.
Yeah.
And Edric comes out and he shoots a laser from his mouth, and he kind of gets absorbed in this blue ray, and then they teleport over to Arrakis. Right.
Correct.
And we haven't even mentioned that the Harkonnens are busy plotting. There's Peter de Vries, which is the character that Brad Dourif plays. And then we have the Baron Harkonnen himself, who is just a big, disgusting man. Yeah. He's just in his big chair, and he hovers.
He does.
He uses, I think it's called like sensor technology or something like like levitating or whatever. And he can basically hover up because he's big, and he covers himself in black goo.
Yep.
And he's got loads of pustules on him to make him look really disgusting and really horrible. And for some reason, all the Harkonnens are gingers.
Yeah.
So take with that what you will. Then we have his nephew Raban and his other nephew Fader Alpha, who is Sting.
Yes.
From the police.
Exactly.
The police are coming to do da da da.
Correct.
So we have Sting, who's just another star of this film. I think Sting does really, really good in this one. A little note here. Another note about Patrick Stewart, a bit of trivia. Patrick Stewart was at the time completely unfamiliar with who Sting was and who he was as a magician. So when they met on set, Patrick Stewart asked him if he was a solo artist, to which Sting replied that he's in a band called The Police. Patrick Stewart, totally unaware of this, thought Sting played in a police band.
Oh, nice.
And not actually in a band called The Police.
Nice.
So there we go.
Yeah.
And then on Arrakis, they meet Stilgar, who is the leader of the Fremen.
Yeah.
Because Duncan Idaho, I'm struggling with these names. Duncan Idaho has already been on Arrakis
Yes.
to basically make sure that the Fremen are going to be aligned with the Atreides, because the Atreides know an attack is coming.
Yes.
They fear that there's a trap when they arrive on Arrakis, so they have made an alliance with the Fremen, so the Fremen will sort of protect them and make sure that they don't get attacked when they're harvesting all the spice that they need for the Imperium. Right. So while they're on Arrakis, there's a supply. I know that very famous character actress Linda Hunt is in this film. She plays Mapes.
Yeah.
And I forget what their plot is, but I think it's to do with the Kwisatz Haderach.
Yeah.
Which is the Bene Gesserit have a plan to basically create the perfect human, or the perfect sort of Bene Gesserit follow the prophesied hero, the chosen one type of thing.
Which one's Mapes again?
Mapes is the sort of the I think she's a Fremen.
She's a servant.
Servant, yes.
Yeah. So I've read parts of the book. We spoke about it outside.
Right.
I've read parts of the book. She in the book is meant to she's looking for the Bene Gesserit, and she's kind of helping out Jessica, and she requested to be Jessica's maid.
Yeah.
But she's actually trying to essentially just learn about her.
Yes,
and
because
what's going
Jessica was supposed to give birth to the
Correct.
Kwisatz Haderach, because for thousands and thousands of years the Bene Gesserit have done a selective breeding program to effectively to create the chosen one.
Yes.
Right.
And she was
supposed to have a daughter,
but she didn't, because the Duke wanted a boy.
Because the Duke wanted a boy, and there you go. So
that's it.
Beautifully explained there, my Corey. And
that's what happens in the film.
It is what happened. Yeah, it is.
You were supposed to have a woman, but the Duke wanted a boy.
Because because Bene Gesserit can sort of influence every part of their body. They've got special brains and special whatevers.
And no guy has survived.
No guy has survived. Yeah, exactly. And while they're on Arrakis, which is done in the cinematography of this film, is parts of it is very good.
Yep.
Parts of it is not the best.
No.
Now, we know obviously this film wasn't very well critically received.
It wasn't.
I
read that apparently even at the box office when it first came out, it was.
Yeah, exactly.
No one
yes.
went.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So the box office didn't really make up, and the reception wasn't as good either. So if you'd like to hear the opinion of esteemed critic Roger Ebert on this film, would you like to hear what he said?
Go for it.
And I quote, this is Roger Ebert speaking on Dune 1984.
Go for
it. This movie is a real mess. An incomprehensible, ugly, unstructured, pointless excursion into the murkier realms of one of the most confusing screenplays of all time, so clearly he didn't rate the novel very highly. Ebert then added, the movie's plot will no doubt mean more to people who've read Herbert than to any of those who are walking in cold, which I feel is just probably a natural way to think about it. Very hard to explain something. Dune has been considered by many to be unfilmable. That's something that's also popped up with the novel quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's so much internal dialogue and so much already going on, so much that has gone on, so much going on in the novel. It's just hard to capture all of it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I get from books is if there's internal dialogue in books, you don't question it. But there's certain scenes in this where, like, you'll see Paul, he'll talk and he'll freeze, and you hear his head. But you're like, surely it'd be a bit awkward if there's someone to stop talking.
Roger Ebert named this the worst movie of the year. And
what else came out in 1984?
And in their famous American movie review program, At the Movies, with Siskel and Ebert, from 1982 to 1990, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert reviewed this film, and Siskel had to say, and I quote, "It's physically ugly. It contains at least a dozen gory, gross-out scenes. Some of its special effects are cheap, surprisingly cheap, because this film costed a reported $40 to $45 million, and its story is confusing beyond belief. In case I haven't made myself clear, I hated watching this film."
Okay.
Very strong words there from Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah, it's very strong words.
So The film was later listed by them as the worst film of 1984
Yep.
and the biggest disappointment of the year.
Okay.
So, and if you'd like to, Janet Maslin of the New York Times also gave, you laughing at her name, also gave Dune a negative review with 1 star out of 5.
I'm laughing because you just have reviews pulled up.
Yeah. She said that several of the characters in Dune are psychic, which puts them in the unique position to be able to understand what goes on in the movie. So so she's obviously saying that no one else will.
Yes.
It's perilously overloaded, as is virtually everything else about it.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
if you'd like to hear Variety's thoughts on Dune, it's huge, hollow, imaginative, and cold sci-fi epic, visually unique and teeming with incident. David Lynch's film holds interest due to its abundant surface attractions, but won't, of its own accord, create the same sort of fantasism that has made Frank Herbert's 1965 novel one of the all-time favourites in its genre.
okay.
So there we go. Just as an extra point, it's not a review, but David Lynch was actually approached to direct Return of the Jedi at this same year. I think Return of the Jedi was 1983, and he turned it down to do this. Whether that was his decision, and Richard Marquand was chosen in his place. Whether that was your decision or his, I don't know. But,
Yeah. I mean,
whether that was a good decision or bad.
I don't know. Could you imagine? I can't really imagine David Lynch doing Star Wars.
No, neither could I. It's always been a George Lucas kind of.
Yeah.
Someone once told me that most of the directors of the original trilogy were sort of directors in name only.
Yeah.
You know, like Irvin Kershner and Richard Marquand were only sort of hired to as most of the MCU directors are today, to just carry out the vision of George Lucas, which is, in Marvel's terms, Kevin Feige.
Yes.
But let's go back. Let's step back into the events of Dune.
Where do we get to?
Goodness, I think we were talking about Mapes, so we can assume that we're on to the sort of the Kwisatz Haderach and what the Bene Gesserit are up to.
Correct.
And meanwhile, Paul's been having these visions. Paul's been having these visions of this woman called Cheney, who's a Fremen girl.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the one bit at the start where Sting appears.
What?
Do you not remember? There's one vision at the start where
Sting's in the vision.
Yeah, it's literally he falls asleep and Sting goes, "I will kill you," and then he disappears.
Oh, right. Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Well, they duel at the end.
We do. So I assume it's supposed to call back to that. It's like
okay.
But it just felt really weird.
Because they create. And also, if you're wondering, the Dune universe is without droids, robots, AI.
Yes.
This is due to something called the Butlerian Jihad, which is a sort of a 1,000-year war against the machines, because certain planets, as planets that Edric mentions at the start, Recc and Ix, create these sort of machines in man's image, and they become sentient and they wage war, and so the whole of the known universe has to unite to defeat them in what's known as the Butlerian Jihad. So there you go. There are no, and in their place, sort of human computers, which are the Mentats and the navigators, who can sort of do what technology does, but they're humans.
Yep.
By using massive amounts of drugs, which is what spice is, and what whatever Brad Dourif's drinking at the start on Giedi Prime, the sort of red liquid that turns his lips red and gives him big eyebrows, that kind of thing. Everyone's using drugs. Everybody's on drugs in Dune, which I think is probably the best thing I can say about it.
Pretty much.
Apart from the fact that it's people thinking things, which is what you said. Then we see the planet of Giedi Prime, which is where the Harkonnens are from.
Correct.
And it's the fact that they're in this green room, and I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that was supposed to be green screened out, and it wasn't. They just left it bright green.
You know why? It wouldn't surprise me.
Because it looked like a sci-fi kind of, green room, but there's no green screen effect on it whatsoever.
I don't know.
And apparently David Lynch did not like directing this film.
No.
He didn't really speak very highly of it, up to the point we did the famous Hollywood thing of, on some DVD releases, crediting the direction to Alan Smithy, who does not exist.
Well,
Alan Smithy is...
There was a director at some point called Alan Smithy, who then, I've got a feeling, I could be wrong, sued people because he is an actual person.
Right.
And was like, I don't want people using my name on his really bad films. You stop using, even though they were obviously using his name because he didn't exist at that point. But I think there was, at one point, a Alan Smithy. And
Yes.
yeah,
David Lynch said he considers this film to be his only real failure in his career. To this day, he refuses to talk about the production in great detail and has refused numerous offers to work on a special edition DVD of this film.
fair enough.
As David Lynch has said, it would be too painful of an experience to endure. And many fans hope that one day he will eventually come around on this film. I think he'll be too busy saying it's Friday once again on Twitter.
Yeah.
To be thinking about Dune.
To be fair, it's what?
And the fact that
48, well, nearly 4 years ago now.
Yeah. And the fact that the 2021 version has blown this one out of the water in pretty much every single way. So, even though I've heard people who criticise the 2021 version more than this film, and say the 2021 version is all about style and no substance.
Yeah.
Where this is more about the plot and the story of it, I guess. So, Paul gets affiliated with the Fremen.
Yes.
And he takes on the name Paul Muad'Dib after the little mice that live
in
on
the moon or
and
something.
the moon. Yeah. Well, no, there is actually the mice that live on Dune are called Muad'Dib, but also there's one of them that looks like on the moon.
Yeah.
There's also called Muad'Dib. So anyway, he takes on that name, and he begins to lead the Fremen in a crusade against the power of the Emperor and the Imperium.
Yes.
Because the Harkonnens do actually carry out their attack, managed using Dr. Yui, who is a Suk doctor. They don't think will betray them.
Yeah.
Because he has the Suk conditioning, which is the Imperial conditioning, which means he cannot betray his masters.
Yes.
But he does betray them because they have his wife hostage.
Correct.
Actually, in the 2021 version, they turn his wife into a mutant spider. Did you know that?
Again, in the book, it's mentioned early on. I think his wife's dead. In the book.
I think his wife's dead.
But
the Harkonnens say that they have her, and that there's enough for Yui to betray them, to betray the Atreides and allow the Harkonnens to return to Arrakis and attack.
I think it's also at this point. I think it's the attack from the Harkonnens where the shield appears again.
Right.
I've tried searching YouTube. I cannot find a clip of this.
Right. What happens with the shields?
So Duncan's back.
Yes. Yep. Duncan, Idaho.
And I kid you not, there's this fighting going on.
Right.
They're like firing their whatever voice, their thing.
Yeah, their voice cannons.
It cuts to these Harkonnens, and all of a sudden, just a guy with a full shield on, just like tackles just comes barreling through and just tackles 4 people.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to something else.
Right.
So all you see is just this big rectangle shield just ram into people and just disappears again.
Okay.
And then I think Duncan later dies.
He does. He dies in that fight.
Yeah.
He's later brought back in the other novels, but hey, it's like a clone called a Gola. But
Great.
hey, and obviously the Emperor has contributed to this attack by giving them his Sardaukar, who are just as ineffective as you can imagine.
Yeah.
They're basically like just stormtroopers. That just
I like
run
how
in
we also see the Emperor twice. We see him first off saying, "This is my plan,"
at the start,
and then we see him at the end, where we're like, "Yeah, you need to act on this now."
Yeah,
and that's it.
Your plans will come apart, Emperor.
Yeah.
Your plans come apart.
Great.
Because of Paul Muad'Dib has learned to ride the sandworms. You know, we've talked about this. We haven't talked about the sandworms. Yeah. The sandworms are probably one of the most ubiquitous things of Dune. They're one of the most famous, IPs of the property, right? These great sandworms who live in the sands of Arrakis and actually produce the spice.
Yeah.
Their life cycle, actually creates the spice itself. And they're known to as deities of godlike figures of the Fremen, right? So these sandworms go around in the sand, and they've got big mouths.
Yes.
And they've got like the big, 3 things. I think in the 2021 version they just have sort of loads of teeth, like a big boring maw. But here they actually have a mouth that can open and close like a beak. And they go around, and Paul learns to ride them. He can ride his sandworms into battle, right? So he rides these big creatures, and it's the very famous line of the Fatboy Slim song, "Weapon of Choice," which is "Walk without rhythm and you won't attract the worm."
Yes.
Which is from Dune, and it's clear here the worms are attracted to rhythm.
Yes.
So marching, vehicles, things like that have rhythm. That's what the worms like, and they use devices called thumper. The Fremen use devices called thumpers, which are like sticks that you stick in the ground, and then it makes makes a beat, and the worms like that, so the worms go over to it. So. And that's what Paul says, that line, if you walk without any rhythm, you sort of scuttle.
Yes.
The worms won't notice. And if you actually, the music video to Weapon of Choice has Christopher Walken in it.
It does.
Who's been cast as Emperor Shaddam IV in Dune Part 2, coming in 2023. So there we go, connection there. Another connection is your sort of Sting's character, Fade Ralpher, who is the nephew of Baron Harkonnen.
Correct.
And one of the villains of this film.
Yes. He's also older in this film.
Pardon?
In the books, they're supposed to be like teenagers.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Well, actually, that works pretty well because the casting for Dune 2023 has been revealed. Of course, we've got Christopher Walken and we've got Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan. We also have a chap called Austin Butler. Are you familiar with Austin
Know
Butler?
the name.
Right. You'll have known him because he was in the Elvis biopic.
Ah.
He played Elvis.
Okay.
So he's been cast as Fade Ralpher. And many, girls on Twitter are hoping that he may reenact the famous Sting scene of him in the steam bath with the shorts. Anyway, let's move on and...
See, I just thought that was a weird just thing that
David
Lynch
Lynch
just put
scene.
in.
You know what, Sting? Where these... Well, actually, interesting story behind that.
Yeah, go on. Sting just turned up in once and David went, you're in.
Well, it's basically like that,
Oh, okay.
actually. It's effectively like that. It turns out that in the actual... See, let me actually try and find this piece of trivia here for you.
Go for it.
So, did you know initially that Ridley Scott was going to direct this film?
Yes, and also apparently it's supposed to be like a trilogy or something.
Yeah, it was apparently a sequel was planned,
Yes.
but it never actually went anywhere.
No.
So, probably because this film was considered a flop by many.
Exactly.
Now, the famous scene of Sting in the bath, with the shorts on,
Correct.
Was apparently supposed to be a nude scene. Sting had signed on and agreed to shoot the scene nude, but the studio eventually panicked and told the costume designers that they had to put something on him.
So they just put a massive blue
underwear, his tighty whities, his big blue trunks. He's coming out in them. And then Baron Harkonnen is just salivating.
Yeah, he's there.
So he's just like, oh, Fade, the whole time. And he's flying around, he's spewing black goo from his body, all that type of stuff.
Yes.
He's just repulsive. You know what? What's the funniest images is at the end of Dune, where the Emperor is there and all of the Emperor's people, and they're all in like fancy dress and capes and the military jackets and all that. And this big balloon idiot is just flying around like, oh, he's a cartoon character.
It's something.
He might be my favourite.
Yeah.
I feel like I might like the Baron as my favourite just because of how ridiculous he is. Because in the book, he's meant to be this master manipulator.
Yeah.
Like, he can talk the ear off anything. And I know obviously Stellan Skarsgård plays him in the newer Dune, and he doesn't say much.
Yeah.
But in the novel and in this, he has grand speeches, and he speaks, because it's about the fact that the message of Dune is to not trust your leaders. And the fact that Baron Harkonnen has able to manipulate people through his words and able to sort of construe differing opinions and things like that is very true to the style of most political leaders.
Yes.
So, do you have any other notes? Rattle off a couple of your notes, Corey.
What we gone through? Shields, Harkonnen, Shields again.
Shields.
Paul has a sister.
Yes. I've forgotten her name. I think it's A. Oh, I don't know what her name is. I think it was with A.
Yes.
She's a little girl.
Yeah.
And she grows up in the sequel novels, and eventually becomes possessed by the spirit of Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah.
So, and then has to commit suicide because the spirit won't leave her alone. But that is her sister, just a baby in this, and she has obviously the blue eyes of when you get affected by spice. Like, it happens to them all eventually, because the longer you stay on Arrakis, the more spice you're inhaling and stuff like that, and the more drugs you're on. And then they all get the blue eyes, which is instinctive. It's called the Eyes of Ibad, I believe it's called. It's also called Blue on Blue, where you have some blue eyes because of it.
Yes. But he has a sister. She disappears at the end.
She does?
She disappears.
She disappears at the end? All right.
Yep. Tells the Baron to wait for her brother to turn up.
Yep. And then kills him with the Gom Jabbar, with the needle.
Yes. And then he flies out the room and gets eaten by a worm.
He does.
Because he does.
Yes, indeed.
Other than that, Paul can use his voice. I forgot what it's called.
It's called The Voice.
Oh, okay, it's called because I had it written down as The Voice. But
The
I don't know if
Voice.
I just,
It is
yeah.
called The Voice. It's not called anything. It's not called anything weird name.
Yeah.
It's just called The Voice, and it's basically the Bene Gesserit technique of. It's like a Jedi mind trick. Is
Pretty
what I
much.
called it to someone. It's like a Jedi mind trick. It's like you will pass me the water, and then you say it. But the voice just sounds terrifying in this.
It does.
It's like, who want all this ice? And I'm like, oh my god, Gaius Mahayim's shouting at people.
Other than that, that's pretty much all I've got. Bit of rectangles. Gurney comes back
Yep.
because he appears at the end again.
Gurney turns up again.
And it's like, oh,
All right, Patrick Stewart.
He's like, oh, Paul. He's like,
I
oh.
will fight for people. Doesn't he try to put himself up in the trial by combat they have at the end?
Yes. Yeah.
And,
He says that Sting, whatever his name, Fade, is a Harkonnen animal.
Yes.
So he wants to fight him, and Paul doesn't even reply.
No.
Doesn't even acknowledge it.
Doesn't even acknowledge. Sorry, Patrick Stewart. You aren't the right Patrick Stewart. Max von Sydow is in this film.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that?
No.
He plays Dr. Kynes, who is the Fremen doctor.
Okay.
Yes, Max von Sydow. Apparently, Max von Sydow hated the still suit costume. You know the still suits that they wear on Arrakis. Apparently, he hated that, but he liked how his body looked in it.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. So he put up with wearing them. Of course, they're very sort of tight-fitting.
Yeah.
And because obviously you're in the desert and it's a very dry heat,
Yes.
so it has to conserve water to like your body's water, and all of your excesses, let's call them,
Yeah.
are converted into water, which
Yes.
is nice.
And you have to stick a tube up your nose.
You do have to take a tube up your nose. So that's what we've got for that. And is there any other notes that you had on?
That's pretty much it. To be fair, the film got to a point where it was too weird that I stopped making notes.
Right, okay. But you know what? I'm going to pack it in.
Yeah.
I'm going to start making notes. And then by the end of the film, Paul Atreides is elected emperor.
Yes.
Because he beats
Fade.
He beats Fade Raltha, and all of the Carinos are banished to Seleucus Secundus,
Yeah.
which is their sort of ancestral planet, which is now kind of used as an exile world. And now Paul Muad'Dib is emperor of the known universe.
Yeah.
There he goes. And for the next 12 years, he goes on a ruthless jihad, purges several planets, and kills billions of people. And, then his son becomes the giant worm.
Yeah. Well,
So,
sadly, David Lynch didn't get that far.
no, didn't get that far. Didn't get that far, did he? But I wonder whether Corey will get far on his weekly rec.
Rating.
But before that, I was segueing.
Oh, I wasn't too
I
sure.
was segueing.
I don't know about that.
I was going to go rec rating. I was stepping into the rating right
Okay.
now. Didn't you need to remind me? You said that with a very stern tone of voice, Corey.
Yes.
I was about to segue into it. Okay. I didn't
Okay.
forget. I didn't forget.
Right.
I didn't forget. I did not forget. Right. Real rating for
Yep.
Dune 1984.
Yep.
Would you like me to go first, or shall you?
Uh,
I can go first.
go first.
I'm really sorry because
Mine's
I
not
like.
high.
Right, neither's mine.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that I like Dune. I love the books. Right, I love Frank Herbert's world. I love the Duneverse. That's Dune. That's
I
Dune
gathered.
universe.
I got
Right.
that.
I love the Duneverse. I love the characters. I love the world. I love the lore. I'm a big fan of sci-fi lore. You know me.
Yes.
I love all the different religions and the different influences that Frank Herbert took from things around the world.
Yep.
From the stories of heroism and the Middle Eastern and Islamic influences, the linguistics. There's hundreds of words of language and knowledge, and there's historic influences. There's things about Zen and there's Sunni adherence and religion, and he's got a great legacy of the books. And I cannot get enough of Frank Herbert's world or what he was inspired by. And just the man himself, and every single piece of work that's come out of this universe, right? That being said,
Yeah.
4.5.
I was gonna give it a 5.
Right.
To be fair,
I was expecting worse.
I thought you were gonna be like, oh yeah, this film is like story-wise bad, but it's just really, really great.
I cannot overlook the insanity.
I thought I was gonna upset you by giving it a 5.
No, you
Okay.
weren't going to upset me. I brought it down. I was going to give it a 5, and I thought I cannot forgive this.
I was gonna give it a 4 or 4.5.
4.5 is all it's going to get from me.
The last half an hour was at least somewhat enjoyable,
Right.
so I bumped it up a little bit.
I'd say probably the opposite for me. I'd probably like the first half more than the second.
I thought the first half was a bit slow,
Right.
and then as soon as he teaches people his weapons and he rides
Yeah,
the worm. I thought, okay, it's at least picking up a little bit.
Right.
It just slowed down again by the end, but
Okay.
there's a little 10-minute like chunk, which is all right.
All right. Well, there are real ratings. Agree or disagree.
Yes.
And now we will segue to the weekly rec. What is your weekly rec?
So I had a couple ideas for a weekly rec before the show, and I told myself if we have access, and if you're on YouTube, you will not hear the song, but I applaud you to look it up. If we had access to a certain song, I will pick the weekly rec, which is the same name, but the song is from.
Right.
They have the song, so if you're on radio, we'll be playing afterwards. And so I don't think this is unexpected. It's not related to Dune in the normal sense we relate it. So I'm going to take us back to 1984, unless you're in the UK and the film came out in 1985.
Right.
But the actual initial release, it was 1984. In other countries, I assume probably America or maybe, I think, Sweden or Finland, because this is also a book adaptation. Book is not English. I think it's Swedish or it's Finnish or it's Norway. It's somewhere around that area. So, 1984 film adaptation with also one of the catchiest songs out there. And if you're anyone who has listened to anything from the 80s or 90s, or maybe even lived through the 80s or 90s, you're probably going to be annoyed by this song. So anyone out there who's listening, I apologise. I'm going to recommend The Never-Ending Story.
Okay.
From 1984.
The film. Okay, I see.
Are you aware of The Never-Ending Story?
Of course I am. Of course I am.
With the big dog.
The big dog.
And the turtle.
And the horse.
Yes.
So, give us your thoughts.
So, I'm recommending the film. I've not read the book. It's best. I didn't realise it's a chunky book. It's like 500 pages.
So is Dune. Dune is 500 pages as well.
It's a chunky book. Film is an hour and a half. It's nice and short. It's just a good fun.
Isn't that an indicator? Didn't want to stop you. Isn't that an indicator? The Never-Ending Story is an hour and a half for a 500-word book, and Dune is about 2 hours 30 for a 500-page book. Sorry.
But Never-Ending, it's just a good film. It's just fun. It's just fun. It's just a nice. I'm about to call it a nice frolic.
Nice.
It's just you can sit back, relax. If you want to take your mind off things for like an hour and a
rating?
half, I would give it 7, maybe 7.5.
Right, we'll go for the higher one.
Okay, 7.5. But it's just a good film. Highly recommend anyone to seek it out if you have not seen it.
Great, The Never-Ending Story. I wonder if we can pair it up with the song The Never-Ending Story.
Don't we have the song?
Right, okay, well, look forward to that.
Yes.
And if you're watching this on our podcast version, I mean, just listen to the Never-Ending Story song, because it's good.
Yeah.
But those was our thoughts on Dune. Any parting words to leave us with? Parting thoughts? That Toto did the soundtrack?
I did see that.
I was waiting to bring that up.
I saw it before and I thought, nah. I thought it's just different. There must be different Toto.
Different Toto? Toto Africa? Toto hold the line?
Any more?
No, and that's it. That's all I can think of at the minute.
Rosanna,
there you go. Thank you. So, it is the Toto.
Yes.
And honestly, it is this film is a collection of random things, random people that you would never expect to be together. David Lynch, Toto, Sting, Sir Patrick Stewart.
The thing that I find really upsetting,
Dune,
is that you have John Williams, who's doing Star Wars.
Yes, at this very time he was doing Star Wars.
And meanwhile his son is doing Dune.
Of course.
If anyone who's unaware, the singer of Toto is the son of John Williams. If you're unaware, and he's sat here just doing Dune.
Isn't that reflective? I feel like that's reflective in some way. That Dune has kind of become... Because for how famous it was in 1965 and the 70s, it's faded into a very sort of niche thing, whereas almost its successor, which is Star Wars, has become far more renowned.
Yeah.
Which I feel like puts me in a bit of a melancholy mood, really. Because don't get me wrong, I adore Star Wars. I adore it with all my heart. But it's kind of sad to see Dune kind of fade into kind of a nicheness where people haven't heard of it now. Like, this book came out in 1965. Yeah. That's before the majority of probably every major sci-fi property we're hearing about nowadays. Yeah. And I just feel like it just puts me in bad spirits sometimes to think about.
That's understandable.
And I wish more people knew. And I'm really glad for the Oscars that Dune 2021 has won and the release of Dune 2023 Part 2.
Yeah.
However, those were our thoughts on Dune 1984. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope that you'll stick around to watch some more Real Show, listen to some more Real Show in the future. So, it's a goodbye from me, goodbye, and a goodbye from Corey.
Goodbye.